Flay a fish!
Yes!
WWE's SmackDown vs. Raw. Slobberknocker!
Welcome to another episode of The Completionist, and today guys I have a confession to make. I used to watch wrestling a lot when I was a kid. I loved the storylines, the fighting aspect, and all the cool stories that came around it. In fact, I went to all the wrestling events that were in my hometown. I got front row seats, nosebleed seats, it didn't matter. I went to all the events, and one of the best things about the wrestling era of my life was all the cool games that came with it. So today, I'm going to review a game that was the end of my era of wrestling.
WWE's SmackDown vs. Raw. From an outsider looking in, it's hard to really understand what the title of this game stands for, let alone what it actually is. But for the people who actually are into wrestling at this point, it's just another Monday or Thursday night of awesome wrestling.
But Pittman!
WWE stands for World Wrestling Entertainment. They had to legally change their name a few years ago because they were in a copyright lawsuit infringement with the World Wildlife Foundation.
But Pittman!
Who wins matches and the overall
Fake! It's fake! It's not real! Did you know it's fake? It looks fake! Why does it look so fake?
I chose to review SmackDown vs. Raw because for me, this game marked the end of everything that was once great about wrestling. I'll try my best to explain everything as clear as I can, but if I leave something out or get it wrong, forgive me, it's been a long time since I've watched wrestling. The WWE, for many years, was competing with longtime rivals WCW, or World Championship Wrestling, in both ratings and performances. While WCW had the New World Order and Eric Bischoff running the show, the WWE had the Attitude Era, which is my most absolute favorite thing to stem out of wrestling. We had the birth of amazing superstars like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and Triple H. Not to mention the WWE had amazing superstars like Chris Jericho, Mankind, Undertaker, Kane, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, the Hardys, Chris Benoit, The Big Show.
He's on overload! He's on overload!
While the rating wars waged on, it got to a point where WCW was going bankrupt and they were going to disappear off the face of the earth. So Vince McMahon, president of WWE, purchased WCW and with it all of its talent. At this time, Vince also bought ECW, or Extreme Championship Wrestling, which really made Vince the whole monopoly package when it came to wrestling. But heavily these shows would compete for dominance and who could produce a better performance. But in the end, they were all owned by the same company. This is literally what the storyline of the game is.
Wow, you were really a wrestling nerd, weren't you, Gerard?
Now that that's over, let's talk about the game. THQ has been outputting one wrestling game a year since the Nintendo 64. WrestleMania 2000 and WWF's No Mercy are one of the most exciting wrestling games that even till this day provide a lot more fun than most of those SmackDown games do. But those games are for another day. These two different shows duke it out every week on who has a better franchise based on character roster and champions. Each show has its own set of tag team champions, main showrunner champions, intercontinental or US championship, with the cruiserweight or light heavyweight championship, and the women's or divas championship.
Oh god, I can only imagine what the women of wrestling look like. I'm sure they look like this. Oh god, my eyes! Oh god!
Yeah, see, when I started watching, the girls looked more like this.
Oh god, my... Wait! My eyes enjoy this immensely!
As I said earlier, yearly SmackDown games have been coming out since I was a kid, and for me, the presentation on this one specifically was one of the best, and yet one of the worst. Here's what I mean. These games were amazing because you get to control some of your favorite wrestlers, but what really made this game the top of the line was its in-depth Create a Wrestler mode. You got to really immerse yourself into the game by making yourself battle some of the greatest. But what really added to it was the ability to create stables or wrestling factions. Of course, I created Team Beardman, which consisted of myself, Gung Ho Al, and Old Man Snitches.
I'm going to lay the smack down on these candy-ass snitches.
What really wowed me about the SmackDown franchise was its evolution on the PS2. The PS2 had so many SmackDown games, but each one looked better than its previous one. THQ did an amazing job improving graphically and mechanically on each title, and this one was the pinnacle of them all. All of the superstars featured in this game provide their original voices for those involved in the main storyline, although the writing for the plots and such don't really make much sense. For instance, Kane and The Undertaker would never interact with any of these superstars in the manner they do here on screen, but I'll let it slide as they're crafting the story around your character in story mode.
Gotta love that perfect mouth sync as well.
I think you'll find we do things a little differently on Raw, and we're a little tougher than we're used to.
Unfortunately, this game starts to suffer on two parts, the soundtrack and the licensing rights of characters. Soundtrack-wise, there's a handful of music tracks that literally get put on repeat. They tried taking that Tony Hawk approach. I should have seen that coming. They tried taking that Tony Bird approach by using music tracks from famous bands, but it seemed like they could only afford a few songs, so they put the rest on the repeat kind of thing. So it repeats over and over and over again. You'll memorize all the words, but in a bad way. And licensing wise, the character selection is nowhere near what it could have been and should have been. No Stone Cold, no Hulk Hogan, and they made The Rock an unlockable legend character. These wrestlers hadn't wrestled that year, I get that, but many of them were in the games before this. This, to me, was the last SmackDown game I bought because of this reason. Also, the fact that this had marked the developmental stage of what I call the Madden Syndrome.
Madden Syndrome?
This was the launch pad that led into eventually what would be known as WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, all the way up until now, with John Cena as the face of wrestling. No offense to John Cena fans out there, but I have a nickname for him, and it's called The Rock 2.0. And
You're freaking out, wrestling fan.
there's a lot to cover in this game, so I'll try my best to be quick about it. You can choose your favorite wrestler or create your own wrestler to carve out your own unique story.
Just like Wirt carved his own leg.
A wrestling match consists of you beating the crap out of anyone that stands in your way. You don't have a health meter, but rather you've got your body diagram that indicates your strength. Your job is to make the opponent's body turn from blue to red, and then win the match by pinning them onto the ground for 3 seconds, or making them tap out by a submission hold. You've got your special meter that can be built up as you perform your attacks, and when you've filled it up all the way, you store your finisher. Your finisher is usually the end of the match, as it makes it incredibly difficult for your enemy to come back from it. When you pick a character, you can also pick your play style of dirty or clean. This is referring to your character's attitude. If you go clean, anytime you perform a high-flying maneuver or kick out of a pin, you'll build up a meter that's blue, and when it's maxed out, you can become temporarily invincible and make your finisher do double the damage. If you choose dirty, anytime you hold a submission for too long past the rope break, hit someone with a weapon, or throw someone against an exposed turnbuckle, you'll build up a red meter. And if it gets maxed out, you'll then give them a devastating low blow, which essentially is a secondary finisher. In exhibition mode, you can choose from one over several dozen different types of matches. Of course, you have your traditional form of matches, which involve you either pinning your opponent to the floor or making them tap out. But as you look down this list, you'll notice that they went all out in terms of diversity, allowing you to really play some amazing fun matches. Table matches, Iron Man matches, First Blood matches, Hell in a Cell matches, Ultimate Submission matches, the Royal Rumble, the Elimination Chamber, the list goes on. The ability to play any and all insane pay-per-view matches is really what lets this fan service of wrestling really stick with you. My favorite match is the ladder match, in which the belt is hung up in the middle of the ring, and you have to grab a ladder and climb it. This is really fantastic, as you can also grab items from under the ring, such as tables or chairs, and perform insane stunts of putting people through the tables. But luckily for me, I've got the greatest tag team partner on the planet.
Hey everybody, it's Gung-Ho Al.
I don't speak French! Alright, Al, I got the table. You just set it up and you climb it.
What?
Set up the ladder, climb it, and grab the belt. I'll get these two.
What's going on?
Set up the ladder and climb it and get the belt.
Okay, I gotta put
Set
the
up
ladder
the
down
ladder,
and go for the...
climb it, and get the belt.
Oh, watch this.
No. Why did you do that?
I got wings! I wanted to fly!
When you watch wrestling, you usually hear two commentators commentate on the match. On Raw, you had Jerry the King Lawler and good old JR, or Jim Ross. These guys were always a blast to hear talk with each other because they made it seem so fascinating. JR's screaming literally made anything sound fun. Whereas on SmackDown, you had Michael Cole and Taz. Now, when they first started, they were a little bumpy and boring, but by the time they had their run, they actually really grew on me.
Taz's insight on current-day wrestling tactics was really sometimes all I needed to get me through a match. Creating a wrestler at its core is what this game is all about. You can customize the crap out of your character, the insanity as to what you can come up with. And the wrestling moves themselves let you combine some of your favorite wrestlers all into one person. Usually in wrestling, the superstars have 2 finishing moves, all named after their own persona or style of wrestling. In this case, my character had the bear hug and the bearded drop. In Snitch's, he had the Herodric Stunner and the Tristram Flip.
Horadrum.
The downside to creating a new character is that all of your stats are incredibly low. The only way to build up your stats
Stats to play career mode. You gain experience points based on if you win matches, and you can distribute them any way you'd like. You also generate cash for each performance. You can use the cash to purchase WWE legends like The Rock and Andre the Giant, more movesets, more costumes, loading screens, and you can even create your own unique championship belt. I made the World Championship Gaming Belt. Hey Razor Fist, you want my title? Come and get it! No, seriously, I love the Rageaholic. Now, because there's 2 franchises, there's 2 different storylines. But actually, they're still the same storylines. They literally just swap the characters who say lines A and the ones who say lines B. So really, the story mode suffers a lot here. But I played with Snitches for the Raw franchise, and he became the world champion of Raw. And then I played through as myself on the SmackDown franchise, and I became the WWE champion of SmackDown. And Gung Ho Al became, well, actually, there's no more championships available. Sorry, Al.
Hey everybody, it's Gung-Ho Al.
Now, may I remind you, this game came out when online gaming was not mainstream for the PlayStation 2, and this was one of the first games to get supported by the PS2. Unfortunately, I couldn't connect to the servers, so I couldn't show you what it looked like, but from what I recall, it actually was a pretty good time. Now, for us completionists out there, or for people in general who just enjoy a good challenge, there is also the WWE Challenge Mode missions, where there are basically achievements for doing particular challenges, such as winning the Royal Rumble as the first entry number, or reversing a finishing move. And once you've unlocked all the legendary superstars, you can then do the legendary challenges, which essentially let you recreate some of the finest moments in WWE history. WWE SmackDown vs. Raw was the end of my personal interest in wrestling, let alone wrestling video games. I tried to watch wrestling recently for this video and I couldn't get into it. I have played the later SmackDown vs. Raw games, I just couldn't get into that either. I really think that it all comes down to the era of who you like when you watch wrestling. That's what it was really. Wrestling was all about who your superstar was. For me, it was Stone Cold, and it was The Rock, it was Triple H, it was Mankind, it was the original way The Undertaker was, and Kane, and with the mask, by the way. Wrestling has become such a personal entity in those wrestling fans' lives that it's hard to say that the older fans can come back because those wrestlers aren't there anymore. And if they're there in a smaller capacity as what they used to be. Although this was the end of wrestling video games for me personally, I can honestly say that I can see why every year people go out there and buy the new games because, like I said earlier, everyone has their own personal interest decided by who their favorite superstar was. With that in mind, this game is my completionist rating of finish it or pin it.
Oh my god! It's a Slobberknocker!
That's all the time I have for today, guys, so please, as always, leave a positive or negative comment in the boxes below. Don't forget to leave your game suggestions for the future of the show. Like my Facebook page, follow myself on Twitter, follow Greg on Twitter, and of course, if you guys want to send fan art or letters, please send to my address right here. Also, this Sunday, don't forget, guys, June 3rd, I'm going to be live streaming the first episode of the Downloadable Cast. The hours are actually going to be a little more in the afternoon. I said in last week's video it's going to be, you know, between 8 to 10. I think it's going to be more around 2 or 3 in the afternoon to about 5 or 6 in the afternoon Pacific Standard Time. So again, 3 p.m. to 6, not 8 to 10. And yeah, be a part of it. We'll be taking phone calls and questions and that kind of good stuff. And it should be a good time. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go smell what The Rock is cooking. Because he left the WWE to go do a cooking show. That's where he was all this time.
No, he's not a cook. He's an actor.
Rock's an actor?
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.